for whatever reason, some higher power just hates me. Obviously, the new video is about the new mascara and the new eyeshadow palette. I've recorded a video and there was no sound about what I save me. And now the lighting is not as good because the sun is coming in and we've got a shadow, and I am so sorry, guys. So I just want to show you, this is the original clip and I'm going to do voiceover, but I'm going to roast myself and try to make it funny so we can make a good thing out of a bad situation. I'm going to pepper in some of the clips that I recorded later after I realized that there was no sound. Also, thankfully, there were quite a few clips that did have sound, so you will see that later. But can we just appreciate how this lighting is so much better, right? There's no weird shadows, and that's why I didn't want to re-record, and I did so many comparisons as well, and I just don't have the time to do it all over again. No surprise when it comes to the packaging, the classic white box with gold lettering and that vintage looking gold eyeshadow palette outer packaging as well. When you open the palette itself, you can see the mirror, and all of her eyeshadow palette comes with this little plastic covering that has her logo on it as well to protect the mirror so it doesn't get dirty from eyeshadow fallout. There are 6 eyeshadows in here, and at the back there are holes where you can use a pin or something to poke and lift the eyeshadows out the pan, and you can, you know, just like swap and switch, change colors from other palettes, so super customizable. There is 5.1 grams of product in here. It's made in Italy and it's got a 24-month shelf life. It is beautiful, it is stunning, it's perfect for spring. It's my new favorite Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow palette without a doubt. Now if you really want to like a deep dive into her formulas and her pre-existing palettes, then make sure you watch my older videos, but today I'm really just gonna focus on this one eyeshadow palette. A really subtle detail that I noticed on the packaging was that the new printed label on Betty is a darker, bolder black. You can see it compared to Myth and compared to Fawn. I personally think that bolder black looks a bit cheaper, less refined. And it's a similar story with the mascara actually, but the other way around, because Burnt Umber has that super like refined look to the font, whereas the original black looks a lot more bold. I'm guessing this is just discrepancy in like manufacturing. I don't think she's suddenly found like a new supplier or changed factories or anything. I think it's just some printed better than others. I do think this font looks a lot better than this, but anyway, I don't think this is something that anyone is really gonna care about, but I know you guys like it when I really dive into the details. So this is Betty in all of its glory, and it's just the perfect spring eyeshadow palette. I love lilacs and purple, so this was calling out my name. And by the way, I am just yapping on and on here about how much I love the color story, because it like purples, lilacs, I love them on my eyes. And also how much I love that this palette was inspired by her cat, because I am a cat lover. I know a lot of you guys own cats and love your little fur babies. Lisa's cat Betty has really amazing shades of fur, and I've never seen a cat like that, to be honest. Names like Talk to the Poor, Prima Donna, and the Starlet, they're just such amazing names and so accurate to describe cats, so I just love that. But anyway, enough yapping. I'm gonna show you swatches. I'm gonna show swatches on the back of my hand, and I'm going to do swatches on my eyelid as well this time. I do these swatches a little bit differently. Rather than going in order, I decided to group the colors that are similar together. So the first shade that I'm going to swatch is Prima Donna. It is a metallic finish formula. It is described as a deep lavender with contrasting cool and hot pink pearl. Next, we have Lavender Queen, which is a satin / metallic formula. It's described as the incredibly luminous lilac-y pink with a wet look shine. You can see that I was pressing pretty hard when I was swatching, because this pan is a bit harder pressed, so it does take a little bit more digging with your fingertips to get the payoff, but it still works beautifully, and I love this color so much. Clearly I had a lot to say about this shade when I first swatched it, but I can't remember what I said. And the next shade is Starlet, which is a luminous duo formula. It's described as a semi-translucent silvery green with contrasting pink and lilac sparkly pearls. It's essentially a lilac to green shift. I don't really see the pink very much. I hope you guys can see a little bit of that flip, but I do have better clips later on too. The next shade now we have is Talk to the Poor, which is the best name. It is the Luster formula and it's a cool mushroomy taupe. This is definitely not a warm toned brown. It's cool / neutral and it is the perfect one and done everyday metallic brown shade. This shade picks up so easily as well. You don't have to dig in at all and you can see that specks of fallout on the back of my hand because I dug in a little bit too much. The next shade is Posh, which is a luminous formula. It's described as a rich mulberry mink with silvery pink pearls. This shade is really, really sparkly. It's probably one of the most sparkly metallics Lisa has ever made, not just in this palette, but in her entire collection. And finally, we have High Maintenance. Again, fantastic name. It is a luster formula and it is a peachy ginger gold. Although this shade looks quite bright compared to the other browns, it's actually still super wearable and it is a more muted subtle gold when I compared it to other shades in my collection later on. And if you're looking for the two sparkliest eyeshadow in this palette, it is definitely Starlet and Talk to the Poor. A few of you have said to me on Instagram that you're not into lavenders or lilacs. However, you can pick up the singles if you wanted to of the more everyday friendly brown shades. All the singles and the palette are still available on her website. If you've watched my videos before, especially the videos on her eyeshadow palette, you know that I am actually not a huge fan of her eyeshadow formula, especially of the mattes, because I find that they do not pick up very well with a brush and they take a lot of building. However, this palette does not have any mattes in it. It's all metallic satin luminous formula and that is fantastic. You can basically think of this palette as a group of gorgeous one and done eyeshadows. And now we'll get on to the portion of the video where I swatch each individual shade on my eyelid. I'm not wearing concealer or primer and I do have hyperpigmented eyelids and I just kind of wanted to see how the eyeshadows would perform without any primer or concealer. But I do use concealer over my eyelids later on in the creating a look portion of the video. So the first shade I swatched was Lavender Queen and I used a synthetic fluffy brush. The brush is the My Kit co-collaboration with Dennis and Myrex. I was surprised at how well it actually performed with this brush. Although it did look a little bit patchy, but that was only because I didn't use a concealer or primer and I have hyperpigmented lids. When I went in with a finger to intensify, there was no issue with patchiness or color payoff. The next shade I swatched was the metallic shade called Prima Donna. For some reason, I went in straight with my finger. I think I just forgot that I was supposed to use a brush, but I do use a brush kind of more in the outer corners, and this color worked beautifully with that synthetic fluffy brush. No problem with pickup application whatsoever. This eyelid swatch was a little bit messy on my part, and although the shape looks a little bit weird, just so you know, that's not because of the eyeshadow grabbing onto weird patches. That's just me not blending it properly and doing kind of like a quick job. This is not a unique shade by any means, but it is a really classic kind of medium toned purple. The next eyelid swatch is of Starlet, the luminous duo, the green lavender shifty shade, and I used another My Kit Co brush, but this time it was more of a flat brush to pick up the metallic sparkles a little bit better. And again, very surprised at how well this eyeshadow actually worked with a brush. There was a little bit of a fallout from this application, but honestly, could have been way worse. The next shade I swatched with Talk to the Poor in the Luster formula, same flat synthetic brush, and oh my god, This color has so much payoff. It is so pretty. You do not need to dig your brush into the pan at all, and if you do, you'll get a lot of fallout like I did. And this is a little close-up of those two shades on my eyelids. What do you guys think? Next up, we've got High Maintenance in the Luster formula, and I went back with that same fluffy synthetic brush. Picks up great again, no problems with this eyeshadow, and I do think it's more of a subtle shade. Once I put it on my eyelid, I think it looked much more kind of like a impactful gold on the swatch, but on the eyelid it's definitely suitable for every day. Also, why wasn't I looking at the camera most of that time? What was wrong with me? And finally, we've got Posh, the Luminous Formula swatch on my eyelid. I started off with that same fluffy brush, but I felt like it wasn't really delivering as much impact as I wanted to. So then I went back in with that flat paddle brush from my Kitco, and I found that worked a lot better. And this entirely bizarre positioning of my hand against my eyelid was me trying to show you that I felt like the eyeshadow was even sparklier on my eyelid compared to the swatch. There was a tiny bit of fallout which was easily brushed away. Surprise, surprise, I do eventually stop talking, slow down, and show you the eyeshadows on my eyelid properly. Foolish girl looks so happy here because she's talking to her cat but has no idea that there was no sound. Why make that face when you're showing an eyeshadow brush? I have no idea. But anyway, the brush is the My Kitco collaboration with Dennis & Meyrick's My 25, which is a fluffy but tapered brush. My eyelids have been primed with concealer, so I am starting off with a clean base, and I am just putting Lavender Queen, that beautiful light lilac color, all over my eyelids as a starting point. You can see how vibrant and beautiful the shade is. I absolutely love it. Next, we've got Prima Donna, that lovely medium toned purple. I'm putting it all over the outer corners of both eyes with a small tapered brush from my Kitco. You can see in a demo how well that color is going on my eyes, but I forgot to think about the shape and what I was actually doing, so then I took a clean fluffy brush to blend. And my gosh, was it easy to blend it all out and not have any harsh corners, lines. It was a dream to work with those two eyeshadows. At this point, I decided Beauty lipstick and the Pompadour lip liner was no longer serving me, so I put on 1/8 for Romy from Lisa's Rouge Experience lipstick, and honestly, it pairs the look perfectly. Considering I wasn't sure about this shade to start off with, I was falling in love with it with this look. And suddenly my cat fell off the windowsill, knocked over a light, and I just went to check whether he was okay. And then for the lower lash line, I used the shade Posh on a small pointy brush, again from my Kitco. Can you tell I like my Kitco brushes? I was pretty happy with how the look was coming along, but Phoenix wasn't impressed. As you see my backdrop move, he left the room. I use a fluffy brush to just blend out that application a little bit to make it less harsh, but I mean, it's not like you can see that though because I am totally blocking the camera. Best YouTuber ever. And then I use the shade Starlet, that duochrome shade in the lower lash line inner corner, so just give the look even more of a pop. Now let's talk about the mascara in the shade Burnt Umber. I have reviewed this mascara before on my channel if you want to check that video out. I will link all related videos in cards and in the description box. I am pretty much wearing a full face of Lisa Eldridge, and I will list everything that I use in the description box as well. In terms of the mascara, I think it is a nice mascara. It's a good mascara. It might even be a great mascara, but it's not my favorite mascara. This tube of mascara will set you back £29. Exact same gold tube packaging, but underneath here you've got burnt umber on the printed label. This is also made in Italy. It's got a 6-month shelf life. And here is a close-up of that new mascara. It is a plastic wand, slightly curved as well. Honestly, it's pretty nice. It works for a lot of people. It's just not my favorite, and you can see that rich brown shade coming through as well. I've said it many times before, but I will say it again. That Rephr eyelash color, it is the best thing ever. I've tried Bobbi Brown, I've tried Shiseido, I've tried Shuimura, but Rephr beats them all. I don't know what it is about it, but oh my god, get it. I really don't know how people actually film mascara applications because the angles are not the most flattering, but here you go. Here it is in action. It's actually looking pretty brown. It looks more brown in camera than it does in real life, I think. I usually prefer applying mascara with a lash guard, which is what you see here. And I know it's out of focus, but can you just see the cat ring? Can you see my cat ring? Like, isn't it gorgeous? Here is one coat of the mascara. I am terribly bad at looking at the camera. We do a little application on the lower eyelashes as well, and oh my god, that mascara made my lower eyelashes look so long. And I have included a lot of shots of me looking down so you can see the mascara in action. Who knew there would be a benefit to not looking at the camera sometimes? That is with 2 coats, by the way, and I did have to use a lash comb to brush it out a little bit because when you start building it up, it definitely gets a little bit clumpy. I don't have the burnt umber eyeliner, and again, if you've seen my eyeliner review video, you will probably know why, but I used my Asian Beauty eyeliner by the brand IO, which is a C Beauty brand. I don't think you can get it online in Europe or the US, but that eyeliner is fantastic. It's a super fine tipped gel eyeliner. I did feature it in my Asian Beauty haul video as well. It's such an easy application. It does not smudge, does not budge, and to be fair, the mascara held up pretty well as well because my eye's been a bit weird, so I've been using a lot of eye drops, and even using the eye drops didn't make the mascara smudge. I was pretty impressed. I used a warm brown eyeliner with this look to emphasize the mascara a little bit more, and I felt like actually it went quite nicely. I did go back into Lavender Queen to just brighten it up a little bit because I felt like maybe it had faded a little bit. I also extended the shadow into the upper inner corners as well, and that really helped it to pop even more. I love this shade. As you can see, I am really happy with this makeup look. I think the mascara goes so well with those lilacs, and honestly I wasn't expecting that, but I think from watching the clips back and sort of remembering a little bit more about the swatches and the application and the wear, I do think these eyeshadows fade a little bit too quickly for my liking. However, I still love them. It's just colors, like the application, all of that is amazing. But I guess the lasting power perhaps is not quite as good. It doesn't stick to my eyelids so well. But then again, I don't know, that could be a primer issue. Because I only use concealer as a base, I didn't use like a sticky eyelid primer. But you can see, right, like that lilac is just so stunning. I've got a lot of comparisons coming up for you within the Lisa Eldridge collection and comparing it to other brands in my own collection as well. And I can tell you, spoiler alert, I can't find a dupe in my own collection for that light lilac shade. First up, we've got Muse versus Betty. As you can see, not similar at all. And then we've got Myth versus Betty. Myth is discontinued, unfortunately. But I do swatch that bottom left corner shade against the shades in Betty. But the shade from Myth is definitely more of like a grey purple, and it's really not that similar to the Betty shades at all. Next, we have Vega compared with Betty. Vega is looking a little bit green on camera for some reason, but it's just a beautiful, cool toned grey palette. I swatched Moon Swirl and Supernova from Vega and compared it with Talk to the Poor and Posh from Betty. So the lower two shades are from Vega and the top two shades are from Betty. Next we have Cinnabar, which is discontinued, but I did compare the two coppery shades in Cinnabar. So we've got a big old swatch of high maintenance horizontally, and the two vertical swatches are from Cinnabar, and I feel like high maintenance is basically a mixture of those two shades. I compared high maintenance to two Liquid Lyrics eyeshadows as well, the shade Lauren and Diana. So the shade Lauren does look a little bit similar, but is certainly brighter, and Diana is a really fiery copper. Both of those shades are also discontinued. Then we've got Fawn, which is her second newest palette compared to Betty. Fawn is currently out of stock, and I ended up comparing Dorian from Fawn to Talk to the Poor. It's interesting, Dorian and Talk to the Poor are both luster formulas, but you can see how much shinier Talk to the Poor is. And honestly, Dorian just feels a little bit dry to the touch, which I have mentioned before. And now we have Sorcery, which now is probably my second favorite because Betty is the new favorite. I compared the shade Mercurial, another luminous duo formula, with Starlet, the luminous duo from Betty. Isn't it interesting that even though the two shades are labeled as the same formula, they have really different finishes? Mercurial feels grittier, it feels more bitty, that you can feel the glitter, which is completely opposite to Starlet. I also put the shade Mage next to Starlet and Betty as well, just because it had that kind of like silvery tone to it, but really is very, very different. And sound goes back in 3, 2, 1. So as you can see from those comparisons, I think it's really good that there aren't duplicates or dupable eyeshadows in Lisa Eldridge's eyeshadow collection. Although there are certainly similar tones and colors and shades in her lipstick collection, that's not the case with her eyeshadows. So you can buy the whole palette without worrying about having similar shades that you already have if you have all of her eyeshadow palettes. And now I really want to show you some comparisons with other brands because, like I said, Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow, it's for a certain type of customer who kind of wants a little bit of pop of color, wants a little bit of something shiny, but not too shiny, something quite subtle. And it's, you know, it's not for it's not for everyone, because if you're really into indie sparkly eyeshadows, then you will be disappointed by these formulas. But if you're looking for subtle, sophisticated eyeshadows, then these are for you. And again, I'm putting sophisticated in quotation marks because I think it's subjective. So I did buy some new eyeshadows. I broke my no buy for Morgan Turner for her collaboration with Odin's Eye. And are you guys interested in seeing like a video on this, by the way? Do let me know. She does have some really pretty purple eyeshadows in her palette, also spring themed. Obviously, you know, I do think there are some similar shades that you can see. So you got Betty eyeshadow palette at the top, and then you've got Morgan Turner's eyeshadow palette at the bottom, and you can see there are certainly similar tones, but you know, you can tell that Odin's Eye shadow palette definitely packs a bit more of a punch, certainly when it comes to those sparkly topper shades, right? And I just put another layer of Starlet on so that it's freshly applied and a little bit more fair of a comparison. But certainly you can see that shade Flirt is so sparkly, right? And then we've got a comparison of the duochrome as well, and you can see the comparison of the duochrome as well. You can see Lisa's duochrome there at the top. Starlet does not have quite strong of a shift, in my opinion. Definitely still shifty, but not quite strong of a shift compared to this eyeshadow from Odin's Eye. And the eyeshadow from Odin's Eye is Judy M006. It took me a few more swatches to build up Starlet, whereas Odin's Eye was literally like one small dip and a swatch. But that is what indie brands get you. And then I've got a couple of other eyeshadow comparisons with the Natasha Denona. So we've got the shade Posh here from the new Betty palette, and we've got the shade Galaxia from the mini retro palette from Natasha Denona. And I think these are comparable for sure, but the Natasha Denona is definitely just a little bit shinier, and I think Posh is probably one of the really sparkly sort of metallic shades from Lisa Eldridge. So even her most shiny metallic is still just not quite as shiny as the Natasha Denona. So you can see that, you know, definitely a little bit more subtle. But actually, compare the two side by side, you know, I am surprised at how sparkly the shade from Lisa Eldridge is. It really is quite different from her usual, really quite shiny, especially for her brand. I've got a LH Cosmetics quad here, which is one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes, and honestly, LH Cosmetics, such an underrated brand as well. Seriously, like, if you guys want me to break down some LH Cosmetics products, let me know in the comments. Are you interested? But we've got this shade called Passion, which is the same lavender green shift, and again, just feeling in the pan, the LH Cosmetics feels a little bit more grainy, so I think some people don't like that, but obviously the grainier the texture, the sparklier the finish. So we've got LH Cosmetics at the top, and then we've got Lisa Eldridge there at the bottom, and you can see they are identical shades, right? In terms of color, in terms of the duochrome, the flip, they are absolutely identical, but Starlet from Lisa Eldridge is definitely smoother. I think that looks really nice, actually. I am really impressed at how Lisa Eldridge is comparing to my other favorite brands, to be honest with you, because I have not been a huge fan. Like, I do like her eyeshadow palettes, but I don't think I would get them if it wasn't for the YouTube channel. And I think for this eyeshadow palette, if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I would certainly buy it because of the color story. And honestly, now comparing the different formulas from different brands as well, I'm really impressed, actually, really impressed. I'm trying to see if there is like a similar flip in the Denise and Myrex Lightworks palette, but I don't think I can find one. Comparison with the Denise and Myrex Lightworks eyeshadows and the Starlet shade from Lisa Eldridge, and you can see it's definitely a little bit lackluster. This was several swatches, and this was just one swatch from the Denise and Myrex eyeshadow. And what's really interesting is that the Denise and Myrex eyeshadow, even though they're super sparkly, they still feel super smooth when you touch them with your fingers. And I also cracked out the Charlotte Tilbury Pop Shots single eyeshadow, the ridiculously expensive ones that I was really disappointed by. And this is on the back of my arm here. So the middle purple is a Charlotte Tilbury, and this is one of the other purples from Lisa Eldridge, is worn off a little bit because my sleeve's been rubbing it. And this is Lavender Queen, and you can see they're in the same shade family, but Lavender Queen is so much lighter. And honestly, I haven't been able to find another lavender lilac-y shade in my collection that is a dupe for this color, which is really impressive considering I do have a pretty big eyeshadow collection. And then also another shade that I thought was quite interesting to compare with is the Kathleen Light's Il Maquillage collab, which you can't get anymore, but there is this purpley shade which is similar to the Charlotte Tilbury, actually. And for the life of me, why did I buy that Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow? It's such a regret of a purchase. These are the two purples, right, from the Betty palette, and this is the Kathleen Lights shadow, and you can see it's got that same sort of vibrancy and is basically an exact dupe for that Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow, but it's just not quite as pale. So Lavender Queen is the star of the show, in my opinion, my absolute favorite for sure. So overall, I freaking love this palette. The only shade that I'm like not head over heels for is probably this gold, just because I feel like it's not quite as unique. Every other shade, oh my god, I love so much. I'm super impressed at how smooth this duochrome eyeshadow is, and even though I have an exact shade dupe, I think because the texture is so smooth, I really love that. This shade over here, Posh, lots of little shimmers, but it's not glittery, it's really sophisticated. It's great for someone who doesn't usually wear like shiny eyeshadow but kind of want to try it. I think that's fun, you know, great kind of like a gateway eyeshadow, if you will. Also these two purples, which I love. This is just great. It's my new favorite Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow palette by a mile. If love was a palette, then this would be it. I think I don't usually review Lisa Eldridge products like that glowingly, and you know, throughout the process, like the application, everything, you know, it's not perfect, but I love this. This is my favorite. I love the color story, and after comparing the formula and finish with other brands in my collection, I'm just so impressed. I really think Lisa stepped up her game with this release in terms of formula. If you're not into purple, then I think you would like Posh for sure, and also Talk to the Pore as well, which is this shade over here. It's such a great neutral metallic brown as well. You guys know how like critical I am because it's a limited edition. I really do recommend getting it in case it sells out, especially if you love purples and lilacs, because her products do tend to sell out quite quickly, and I'm not someone that pushes products or tell you to go buy something that quickly, but I guess with the limited edition aspect of it, if you were interested and what I said in terms of the customer, the finish and the color story really echoes with you, then I would go on the website and get it. In terms of the mascara, I think when I took a photo in direct sunlight, the mascara looked lighter, looked more brown. Yeah, definitely when you compare with the shade of my eyebrow, you can tell it's not black. Also, this new shade is not limited edition, so you know, there is no urgency with purchasing, but again, it's not like my all-time favorite mascara anyway, so yeah, this is my 2 cents. And also I can't stop looking at how well this lipstick pairs with the eyeshadow look as well. I'm so happy with my eye makeup, just my whole, I'm like really happy with just my whole makeup look today. Let me know if you're interested in the video about the Odenside collaboration with Morgan Turner. I do have the palette and all of the lip products as well, because I think Morgan Turner, I love her channel. I've been watching her for years before she even hit like 100,000 subscribers. So I kind of just wanted to support a fellow creator, although am I a creator? I don't know. I'm with my like irregular sporadic uploads, can I really call myself a creator? But anyway, I am now rambling on. If you've got this, let me know what you thought about it as well. And I will hopefully see you soon. Bye guys. Okay, right. Shall we just, okay, let's, oh god, what a funny joke.